Welcome to the webinar for the KD Strata office opportunity with that Drip is bringing to you in partnership with Strata. I'm also joined by my colleagues Aman and from Strata we are joined by Nihar. Who heads all investments and distribution for Strata. Thanks Nihar for joining us and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Siddharth. Good evening, everyone.
So we'll kick off with a quick introduction to what we are, what Drip is trying to achieve as a platform in real estate in particular, and then hand over to Nihar for his thoughts on the opportunity and the overall real estate market. So, at Drip, as you are familiar with the platform, this is an alternative investing platform that would like to enable opportunities across the risk reward spectrum for its set of investors. And in the pursuit of that mission, we hope to. We did start off with lease financing and inventory financing as our mainstay products, but over the last 5 to 6 months, we have diversified into subscription-based financing, startup equity, and real estate. And across the products, we have been able to enable close to 350 crores of transactions that. With 100 crores of returns being processed to the investors, and close to 15,000 unique active investors. Our investor base has grown multiple over the last 18 months, and on an average, each user is making 3 investments on the platform today, which is incredibly heartening to see. We have users now. From 57 countries, 600 cities. Our global footprint is expanding, and we're super thrilled to have you as a part of this journey with us. Strata needs no introduction. They are India's leading fractional real estate ownership platform. They have been truly transforming the way HNIs, family offices, retail investors invest in real estate. They have now clocked, I think 650, 700 crores of investments with assets in all the key cities: Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Jaipur, and they have executed investments in office, retail, warehouses. So really, across asset class, pan India. Fractional ownership platform that just brings a tremendous amount of value for their investors and us in this partnership. They manage more than 2.5 million square feet of space and have tenants like Westside, Stellar, UBS, Randox. It's just Puma, a great marquee tenant base to have. In this partnership, the sourcing of the investment opportunities is undertaken by Strata, and they are the ones who underwrite the opportunity, negotiate the terms with the vendor, carry out all the due diligence, and also then negotiate the terms with the potential tenant, and undertake the asset management efforts. Drip's role is to fractionalize this opportunity even further from a 25 to 30 L minimum investment size to 1 lakh minimum investment size, and we act as the SEBI. We act as a technology provider with a SEBI registered alternative investment fund that helps enable our investors, our user base, to invest in the Strata opportunities. Maybe I'll pause and hand over the mic to Nihar at this point, and get his thoughts on why investors should look at commercial real estate, and then dive a bit deeper into the KT Strata office opportunity in particular. Over to you, Nihar.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. And thank you everyone for taking out time on a Saturday evening and attending and being a part of this discussion. So I'll quickly take you all through why we think that commercial real estate is a very integral part of one's portfolio, which generates regular income, and why should you have it. Post that, we'll quickly take you through the opportunity as well. And then we'll take on any other questions related to the structure and the tenant and the overall proposition which we have on hands. So at any given point of time, if we look at commercial real estate as an investment option, it delivers at least 2.5 to 3 times returns to a residential property. Now, if you want to deploy your funds into real estate, uh, investors who want to deploy less than a crore or probably less than 10 crores or 20 crores, we have very limited options, right? Real estate, may residential is one, which I'm sure all of us at least have one property where we stay, or if not, we've invested in some other residential asset, but that does not give you more than 2.5% in rental terms. So from a return standpoint, it actually generates negative return for you. Apart from that, land as an option is something which a lot of people wish to invest into, but that itself has its own challenges. One is the gestation period of investing into a land, holding it for a longish tenure, and then eventually selling it, where your second or third generation takes benefit of that. That is something which becomes very cumbersome. And also, land comes with a lot of litigations and all of that. So that also, as an asset class, is something which not everyone would wish to participate in, or at least they don't have the expertise to do that. On the other hand, commercial real estate, when I say that, we're talking about offices, we're talking about warehousing assets, we're talking about industrial assets, or we're talking about data centers. These as asset classes was never offered to any investor who wanted to deploy anything between 1 lakh to, let's say, 50 lakh, or 1 lakh to 1 crore. So that is something which we're doing now with the help of Grip as a platform. I think we're reaching out to everyone who wish to deploy anything between 1 lakh to 15 lakhs, or even higher for that matter. What we do is, and I think Siddharth, you can move on to the next slide. Uh, what we do over here is we acquire pre-leased assets or commercial assets which are already on lease, or effectively at that point of time, the tenant is doing their fit outs, which is going to generate a fixed return over the next 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depending on what the lock-in period is. The kind of returns which we've been seeing over here, or in this asset class, is anywhere between 7 to 8% as the starting yield, and eventually you also take benefit of the rents escalating, or rents increasing every 3 years or every year, depending on the tenant conditions which we've got into. And apart from that, you also take benefit of the capital appreciation. There were 3 or 4 reasons why none of us had commercial real estate as an asset allocation tool in our overall portfolio. One was you needed a very large amount to own a property in these marquee buildings. Let's say something in BKC in Mumbai. If you're talking about Bangalore, then probably something on MG Road, or something in Whitefield, Electronic City. All these major hubs is where, even if you go to buy a single floor, it will not cost you less than 10, 15, 20 crores. And depending on the size, it goes even higher. So one, the biggest barrier was the entry level investment. Second was accessibility. All these larger funds like your Blackstone, Brookfield of the world will come and acquire these assets for 200, 300, 500 crores, and it would never come to you and me for deploying a personal, investment amount. Third was, while you do all of that, you might not have the option of diversification. Let's say even if you have a 10 crore kind of a budget to invest, or if you have a crore to invest, or if you have 50 lakhs to invest, you might at best be able to invest into a smaller shop or something which is a single asset. But with this option, or what we're talking about, which is fractional investment through Grip's platform, if you have probably 20 lakhs, you can invest 5 lakhs into 4 assets. You can diversify across locations, probably something into Bangalore, something into Mumbai, something in Pune. And depending on the tenant profile, you can move that also. So this is one of the largest benefits or biggest benefits what you can look at. Third, or rather the fourth benefit, is that you don't have to worry about day-to-day management of the asset. So when you deploy your money, you know that you're owning a piece of or owning a certain fraction of one of the best buildings in the country or the city, while not having to worry about the rent collection, day-to-day hassles of talking to the tenant, managing the property, and eventually selling the property when as and when we want to exit. And apart from that, taking care of any other requirement which arises in terms of the life cycle of the entire investment or the asset. And fifth, and most important, is exits as well. So what we've changed over here is that today, when you invest into a physical asset, you might not be able to sell one of the rooms, but you will have to sell the entire property if you want to sell the entire property and collect funds. Over here, if you've invested, let's say, in multiple assets, you can sell one of the holdings in one of the assets and eventually take that partial exit and move on. So that's how we've changed this and made this as a proposition for a lot of our investors. Going back to what Siddharth said, so we've actually crossed about 720 crores worth of assets in last 2 years, spreading across warehousing, industrial, retail, and also office spaces across these cities we just showed you. Siddharth, can you move on to the next slide? Cool. So this opportunity which we're talking about is an existing building where the tenant has moved in about 4 or 5 months back. This is one of the best tenants we have in our entire portfolio. We're talking about an opportunity which exists in 7 floors in this building called Krrish Towers, which is about 850 meters before Whitefield Phoenix Mall. If you know Bangalore and if you know Whitefield, Phoenix Mall is the best or the biggest mall in Bangalore, and specifically Whitefield, as that marks the starting of the area, which we call the IT sector or the IT belt, and this is about 700, 800 meters before that. Krish Towers is a building, is about 15 floors. Out of which 7 floors is something which is taken by Puma, which is one of the largest apparel, sportswear and apparel brand in the world, probably the second largest or in the top two. And this is their Asia Pacific headquarters. They were earlier in Indiranagar where they were paying about 120 rupees rent. They moved here where they're paying about close to 42 rupees as the rent. And even if you go on Puma's website, you will see their head office or contact us, you will see this office. So they took this office and the rent started from July 21, but they moved in, they were doing the fit outs and all of that. They spent about 15 to 20 crores in doing the internal fit outs and internal furniture and all of that. And they moved in Jan Feb this year, and they've started probably occupying all those 5 floors on top and 2 floors down, where they're making an experience center. And I will show some pictures as well over here. So from that standpoint, there's zero risk. The tenant is one of the largest guys you can get. They've already moved into the property, so again, no problem. Adjacent to the property or attaching to this building, you have one more building which is there in the same premise. And we can see that on the right hand side building over here, that is the Hyatt Hotel which is coming up. So this is a facility where you have 15 floors of prime commercial property, and attached to it is the Hyatt Hotel, which is your business centric Hyatt Hotel, which is where you have at least next 2 years advance bookings, which we've got. So that is something which makes a very strong case for everyone to deploy their monies. And moving on to the next slide, Siddharth, I think we can talk about the key terms as well.
So we spoke about the location already.
Yeah.
We spoke about the connectivity.
So I'll just take a minute on the connectivity.
Yeah.
Okay. So while, I mean, all of us know in Bangalore, the airport is outside of the city on the north side. So that's about 40 odd kilometers. We're very close to Puram railway station, which is about 3 kilometers. And the metro station, which is called the Mahadevpura, is just when we go outside our lane, we have it over there. We're sharing common wall with HP, which is Hewlett Packard, and they have the R&D center over there. And that's one of the very large facilities which we see. So from a location standpoint, we are also within 1.5 to 2 kilometers of Bagmane Tech Park, which is more than 1 crore square feet, and it's completely leased. Soon Bagmane will also come and reach as well. So that's where you have your Nokias, Ericssons of the world, your Google, all these larger guys in Bagmane. So that's a premium property dealing at about 10,000 odd rupees a square feet. When we acquired this property, this was at about 7,500 rupees a square feet, which again tells you that we acquired this property at a good 10 to 12% discount from the market. The rentals also, which we are seeing in the vicinity, is anywhere between about 55 to 60 bucks. So we are again at a good 15 to 20% discount on the rentals, which makes it even a stronger case for tenant to continue here and probably take up the other floors as well. So the original plan of Puma was to take up the entire 15 floors, which they will do it in about 18 to 24 months at a stretch. So they've already taken 7 floors, which we own, and they're a part of this opportunity. In addition to this, there are other floors which they will take up in the next 12 to 18 months, or rather not even 24, because now it's been 5-6 months that Puma has already moved in. We can move on, so that. Yeah, so Puma needs no introduction. All of us might be wearing Puma, we might be using Puma in a lot of cases, but otherwise they've been in business for more than 70 years. presence across 120 countries, pretty much across the globe, more than 16,000 employees, and revenue crossing about 7 billion as of this year as well. So very strong tenant. Uh, One reason why we agreed to probably get into this, and again, as I said, the tenant profile is very important in all the assets which we've got. You should see the tenant is very strong. Tenant is making enough more money, and this is their headquarters. So all the assets which we have, we probably get those assets, and if not a retail showroom, apart from that, these assets are the head offices of that particular company in India. So that is one of our criterias when we go and acquire these assets. Uh, that again tells us that Puma is not going to move out. There's one more condition. It's a 15-year lease and a 5-year lock-in from Puma's side. And Puma has laid one condition in the agreement saying that we cannot remove them from the property for 15 years unless they default on the rents. So that's a very strong statement to have in the lease agreement, which says that they want to be here for about 15 years. So all in all, while on paper it's a 5-year lock-in from tenant, which itself is very good, you will not see them moving out for 15 years because of the kind of expenditure they're doing on the fit outs, of which they've already done at this point of time. Next, Siddharth.
Sure. Maybe just one question here, Nihar. So,
Yeah,
it's worth probably mentioning the 2,000 employees in India. A good majority of that are in this asset, right?
yeah.
And maybe worth mentioning the fit out costs that Puma has incurred as well. If you could share some color on that.
Yeah. So they've actually spent close to 15 to 20 crores onto the fit out in this. In fact, what I will do is, Nikhil, sorry, I will send you, Siddharth, some photographs right now, which probably you can put up on the screen later, which we didn't have access to earlier when we were just looking at getting this asset, because it was still being worked upon. So this is something which you might want to put up on the screen to actually see how the property is transpired and what has it become right now.
Sure. Yeah. No, certainly. Thanks, Nihar. And maybe that's something that might be easier for us to circulate to the wider group after this call.
Yeah,
But look, I think it certainly shows immense skin in the game from the tenant as well,
correct.
which is good to know. You
Absolutely.
did cover the lease terms. Anything else you'd
Cool.
like?
So I'll just quickly take on this. So this is, as we said, it's a 15-year lease with a 5-year lock-in starting July 21. The first escalation hits 2 years from now, slightly lesser than 2 years from now, because July 24 is when the 3 years gets over, and that's where the escalation hits in. We are already in September 22. So slightly less than 2 years is when you see your returns moving up as well by 15% on what you enter at this point of time. 42 rupees is the rent which we're getting. We're getting additional 10 rupees per month, which otherwise is the maintenance charge, but there's no maintenance which we have to bear. That is going to be borne by the developer, which is Convention Hotels India Private Limited over here, and that is also captured in the agreement. So the rent which will be reaching out to our investors is at 52 rupees per square feet and not just 42. So the 10 rupees which we're getting as the CAM margin, that is also being passed on to our investors. However, the 15% escalation will happen on 42 rupees because that's the actual or the base rent which we call. We've also got 6 months rent as security deposit, which is close to 2 crores. That money also is placed into security fixed deposit, and whatever interest we receive on that at actuals will be also passed on to investors without we retaining any part of that. So these are the basic terms. Can we move on to the next slide?
Sure. Maybe I'll just add one
Yeah,
thing here that the insurance and property tax. We mentioned that it will be borne by the investors, but the investors don't have to infuse any additional funds on an ongoing basis. This will be taken out of the distributable rent month on month or quarter on quarter.
so
Um,
property tax, which is a very small amount, goes from there. Insurance is something which we've already accounted for. So there's
yeah,
no additional deduction from that.
yeah,
The yield which we're talking about, the
so,
returns which we're talking about is net of all of this.
yeah. Um, okay, maybe I can take up this one.
Sure, sure.
So on the we do anticipate, or rather, Strata in its base case anticipates a 14 year hold period, or 14 to 15 year hold period, which is in line with the tenant's lease tenure. Uh, and if we were to solve for that, the target IRR, which is pre-tax, is close to 12.8% for the investor. That results in a profit multiple of 3.75. The average pre-tax yield through the life the hold period is 10.1, and the going in pre-tax yield is 8.4%. It's probably worth mentioning at this point that while the returns are calculated in a base case over the entire lease tenure of the with the tenant, uh, it's highly likely that 5 or 6 years down the line, uh, both Grip and Strata uh, might see a good opportunity to exit the asset, and I think ultimately that decision to exit the asset will rest with the investors, and it'll be, I think, taken by a majority voting. But yeah, we would definitely encourage you to think of this as more of a 5 to 7 year hold period rather than a 14-year hold period. And if the hold period is and if you're looking for a lesser hold period than 5 years, then we would probably encourage you to look at more liquid products than real estate. Anything, Nihar, you would like to add on the exit here, or the strategy that you
No,
think?
I think that's bang on because real estate as an asset class also should be looked at with a slightly longish tenure. That's when you see property appreciating and rents also being escalating on a periodic basis. So you should definitely take benefit of that.
Sure. Um, I'll request my colleague Aman, uh, who to sort of take us through the investment structure.
Sure, Siddharth. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in on a Saturday afternoon. I'm Aman. I'm an assistant vice president with Grip. Um, in terms of the structure, what you see on your screens right now with the SPV holding the asset and being managed by Strata is the de facto model followed by most real estate companies in India. Each asset is owned by an SPV set up for that purposes. Of course, for GRIP users, as we had mentioned upfront, they're coming in through an alternative investment fund, which is one of the SEBI registered pooling vehicles out there, and this pooling vehicle or the AIF holds the securities in the SPV on behalf of the investors, and as a result, the investors essentially get units of the AIF. It's a the this structure is extremely common to how investments in our other projects like startup equity are structured, where again the AIF is the entity which invests in the investee entity, and our users get scheme units completely on a pass-through basis. So that we can move ahead. In terms of the investor qualification criteria, and this is coming straight from the SEBI norms. So SEBI, in its wisdom, has prescribed two main criteria. They say that investors in AIFs should meet a certain net worth criteria. This is and that criteria for individuals is that you should have more than 2 crores of net tangible assets, and if you're a body corporate, you should have a net worth of more than 10 crores. So as long as any user of ours who meets this criteria would be able to invest in this asset class. Additionally, SEBI has also prescribed that the investment must be made in a total of INR 25 lakh should be invested over 5 years in various schemes floated by the AIF. Of course, the benefit of investing through GRIP platform is that you get to diversify not just across one specific real estate property, but multiple real estate properties. And if you would want to go beyond that asset class and look at other asset classes like startup equity, you could use this investment limit towards those asset classes as well. So we actually did preempt a few questions, and these slides pretty much cover those. So in terms of the exit opportunities which are available, we try to do a side-by-side comparison for if you were a Strata user versus if you were a GRIP, given that you're a GRIP user, how the exit would work. So of course, the first case is an asset sale, which happens at the end of the term. And in those in that matter, both the Strata user as well as the GRIP user are at par. Similarly, for resale and for private sale as well, all those options are also available. So typically, what would happen is that if you would want to get an early exit, these units that you would hold in the AIF are transferable. On a best efforts basis, both Strata and us can facilitate additional players who would want to, investors who would want to invest in those units, and you would be able to exit.
Mm.
And in terms of the tax implications, and the reason we chose this structure is because it has a pass-through status under the income tax laws. What that means is that from a tax standpoint, holding units of the AIF is as good as directly investing in the property itself. So what we do know is, for example, these returns are paid out as interest on the CCDs, which is one of the instruments that is issued by Strata to the AIF. The the income that you earn in terms of lease rentals are taxed under the head income and others from other sources, and is payable as per the applicable tax slab rates for a resident individual. And similarly, the equity upside that you get in terms of just holding the property throughout the end of the tenure is handled in form of capital gains tax, and that would of course depend on your hold period. So if you hold it for less than 36 months, this would attract tax at the applicable tax slab rates, and if it is more than 36 months, which is what we advise, then the long-term capital gains tax would be applicable, which is at the rate of 20% with indexation benefits. Of course, this is what we understand basis our tax advisors, and we would urge you to definitely reach out to your tax advisors as well to understand this in greater detail.
Okay, thanks, Aman. I think that's probably the last slide in this deck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and request Nihar to share his screen, and he might be able to show.
I'll just I'll just take you through the pictures, what they were earlier and what they are now. So that itself will tell you. So if you can see my screen, this was the picture when I visited this site about one year back or 1.5 year back, even before Puma moved in, right? So if you look at the pictures, just a sec. Yeah, these are the pictures now. So if you see, this is what it's transpired into, and this was a picture taken about 3-4 months back. This is the actual entrance and the ground and first which Puma is taking. This is where they're making their experience center. This is how the marketing or the branding is going to happen on the top of the building. This is the rendered image which they've shown us. The parking lot they're going to make in a very sporty style. If you see globally, their head offices, these are all mapped this way. This is their rendered image again. So if you see, it's very close to that. This is actual, and this is what they wanted to make. This is your internal pictures of the offices just before they moved in about 3-4 months back. The kind of expenditure which they've done here, they've actually carved out the entire space across these 3 floors and made this internal staircase as well. Apart from that, these are your other pictures which Puma had shared with us. So, yeah.
Yeah, looks damn neat. Thanks, Nihar, for sharing this.
Thanks.
Well, happy. I think Aman, Nihar, I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I know that a few questions have been trickling in, and Nikhil has been responding to those in the chat window. Nikhil, is there anything that you would like us to pick up that's unanswered at the moment? We're happy to give investors a minute or two to think through any questions they might have.
Thanks, Siddharth. I think there's one question which, while we've answered in the chat box, may be important to discuss. The question is about, is there any title rights which are available in the hands of the investor? Right? And I think it goes a little bit to the structure, but if we could talk about how an investor is participating and has an indirect right and who owns the title, I think that would be very helpful.
Nihar, would you like to take that, please?
Sure. So in fact, that's the beauty about this structure, that all investors who participate and who become shareholders of this larger SPV, they become the direct owners of the asset. any decision regarding the asset, which is either selling the asset or releasing it to someone else, all of those are taken by the investors stroke shareholders. GRIP becomes one such investor or shareholder into the asset, and hence all the powers actually lies with the investors stroke shareholders and not with Strata. Strata at no given point of time takes this money into their account, nor does it take the property into its control in terms of the property is actually signed, or the ownership is with between the SPV and so the sale deed is signed by the SPV and the seller, and the lease agreement also happens between the SPV and the Puma, and not by Strata. So that's where the entire control of the asset in terms of ownership or changing the tenant or getting on another tenant, all of that is with the investors.
Thanks, Nihar.
Yeah.
Nihar, maybe another question for you.
Sure.
10% as a pre-tax yield. The question is, it seems quite attractive as compared to what one would get one directly investing in real estate.
Yeah.
How does this attractive from the renter's perspective or Puma's perspective?
So,
Yeah,
sorry, two things, right? So, getting a certain yield, it's the tenants or the lessees are nowhere bothered with that. What they are bothered with, what is the kind of rent they're paying. In all the properties, or specifically in this property, Nikhil, what we have is that the ongoing rates or rentals in the market is anywhere between 50 to 65, right? And we are at the lower end of that entire rent bracket, which means that Puma is very happy taking up all these floors with the lowest possible rental in the micro market, probably getting to do the branding on the building. So that is something which they wanted. Earlier they were in Indiranagar, which is another area in Bangalore where they're paying $120. So from that perspective, GRIP and Strata and investors are making this yield, which Puma is not bothered with. Puma is bothered with what's the rent they're paying, and are they paying lower than the market or at the lower end, which is what is the case over here. What happens over here is that when investors come in, you should not come in only for rental yield, while rental yield itself alone is crossing about 10% average yield. What is to be understood as these assets give you capital appreciation as well, because tomorrow when we're going to sell this asset, we're going to sell at obviously a higher capital value. We anyways bought it at a certain discount. So the overall IRR which we're looking at is anywhere between 13 to 14% over here, which means your 10.5% post tax will be easy to achieve, is what we estimate and we expect.
Got it.
Yeah, just add that ultimately it also goes to show the attractive yield also goes to show Strata's negotiation skills with the seller, right?
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you one very important point is the pictures which I showed, right? So we actually term sheeted this asset when the asset was not in the greatest of the shape, right? It required a lot of refurbishment, work to be done, and all of that. So that is the time when if we check other legal parameters and they are correct, and if we have the tenant on board, it makes sense to acquire when the chips are a little down from the seller standpoint, and that's where we probably rush into the asset and buy it rather than waiting it to be what it is right now. And then if we would have gone right now, we would have got this not less than 8,500 to 8,700 square feet, which would have taken my overall yield to about 7.5%, vis-a-vis 7.8 to 8% what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Nihar, is TDS applicable?
TDS is definitely applicable. So there's a 10% TDS which gets deducted, and it completely reflects into your from 26 years on a quarterly basis. And we obviously pass on those certificates access as well to you.
Yeah.
Really, before we answer the question on fees, Siddharth, I thought it'd be good to talk about two other questions from Nihar. One is who's responsible for statutory non-compliance in case of penalty for municipalities, fire department, and also Nihar, if you could talk a little bit about what common area maintenance fee is, right? What is, you mentioned earlier that it's 10 rupees. What is the rental? What is the common area maintenance fee as concepts, and what are the actual numbers?
Sure. So when you buy any property, whether you buy a residential or whether you buy a commercial office, there are these common areas which are used by everyone in that premise, and those are not owned specifically by you. Let's say your lift lobby, your entrance lobby, your maintenance of the garden or any landscaping which is there, your lifts per se, any other common usage facilities which are there in that premises, either on their floor or in the overall building. That all comes in the common area, and obviously there's a certain fixed amount of funds which are required to keep the property and keep the facility in the same state for as long as you want to continue holding that property. So that is called the common area maintenance charge. And in this particular facility, 10 rupees per square feet is the common area maintenance charge. Now, again, one of the negotiation points over here is that for the first 7 floors, which we would buy from the seller, where Puma has leased out the current 7 floors, there is going to be zero common area maintenance liability on Strata or you as investors. That is something which developer is going to pay forever till the time we or Strata are owners of this property, and that is also covered in the agreement which we have with the seller. So the 10% common area maintenance charge which Puma is giving, Puma is total giving 52 bucks, out of which 42 is towards the actual rent, and 10 rupees is the common area maintenance charge. Now, because we as Strata do not have to give it to the society, that gets passed on to our investors. Hence, the total return which you look at is close to about 52 rupees, which again takes your yield higher than the regular investor. So today, if you were to go and buy one of the floors directly, you would have to pay this 10 rupees from your pocket. So that is again one of the negotiation points where we have kind of managed to get that additional return for our investors.
Perfect. Thanks. And Nihar, on the statutory non-compliance, fair to say that that is a responsibility of Strata as the manager?
Absolutely. And, while we have 17 or 18 assets, which we've done at this point of time, we will keep growing, right? So we don't, at any one point of time, we also don't want to be negligent that, we forget on doing something, whether compliance bit, statutory bit, or anything otherwise as well. So we've appointed a trustee, custodian, and an escrow agent on every asset. So there is Vistra or, universal trusteeship company, which is a part of every asset, which ensures the day-to-day management, day-to-day regulatory affairs, whether it's collecting and filing of GST, paying property tax, all of that is done by them. And we obviously, from Strata's management fee, which we earn, we pay a certain fees to them to manage all of that. At any given point of time, if any of the investor wants to see the actual physical documents of the property which is registered and the lease agreement, they can also write to Universal Trusteeship independently, and they can go ahead and check that as well. So all of that is very transparent and ring fenced, but we do not want to have any human error over there. So while we have teams, which is asset management team, which is looking into all of this, we already have an external agency appointed on a certain fee per year, where they manage everything on a very regular basis. Their job is to only manage these things for every asset which we have.
I think worth mentioning that Vistra is a SEBI registered trustee.
Vistra, Universal both. So Universal Trusteeship is a part of ICICI Group, and more than 70% of the banks and all the developers also use Vistra as their trusteeship company and custodian as well.
Yeah, and to Nihar's point about the investors can verify the documents. Our users are welcome to write into GRIP, and it's something that we can facilitate for you with Strata.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Siddharth, maybe a couple of questions I'm combining for your benefit. One is, what is the difference between investing in this opportunity through GRIP versus Strata? Why is that difference causing a lower return on GRIP? And also, what are GRIP's fees, right? I think all three are related, and maybe you can cover it in one go.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll talk about the fee first. Our investors pay 2% fee on the investment amount. That 2% fee is split between GRIP's AIF partner and GRIP. At Strata's end, there is a fee of another couple of 100 basis points. And Strata also charges a performance fee, which is a 20% over 20% of the profit, as long as the IRR is more than 10%. So 20 over a 10. those are the fee in the entire deal. The you know the answer to why the difference in returns is pretty simple. It is owing to Grip and Grip's AIF partners fee, right? And that's what results in a slightly lower return on the Grip platform. But I think that needs to be looked at in you need to couple that with the fact that you can invest as little as 1 lakh on Grip, while on Strata you might be able to invest 25 to 30 lakhs. So if you can invest 25 to 30 lakhs, we would definitely encourage you to go invest on Strata directly. But
But Siddharth, one very important point is that this opportunity is not available on Strata platform now.
this
It's only with Grip.
that's true. This is now exclusively available with it's
Yeah.
not available on Strata anymore. And we thought this was a super interesting opportunity and took an allocation much earlier. So yeah, this particular opportunity can't be accessed on Strata. But in general, if you have 25, 30 lakhs to invest in an opportunity, please invest directly on Strata's platform. If you're looking to invest anything lesser, we would encourage you to consider investing through Grip.
Thanks, Seth. A couple of questions back to you, Nihar, around the risk of the opportunity. So, what is a default situation look like, and if there was to be a COVID-like impact, a COVID-like event, what would be the impact of rentals received by investors?
So, very good question. I think we should understand that when we are investing in any asset class, right, what is the underlying asset and what are the characteristics of that asset. So, real estate per se, if you were to invest either in residential or if you were to invest in commercial, and if you're giving it on lease, obviously there is a tenant which is signing an agreement with you and all of that. So, by law and legally, he cannot default till the time he's locked in, and he cannot move out till the time he's locked in. In this case, it's 5 years. 4 years from now, and 15 years is the lease period. If at all the tenant was to move out and stop paying rents and all of that, we can. And if he stop paying rent but is still in the lock-in, then we can actually lock the premise and ask him to move out. And that's also there in one of the conditions saying that we cannot ask them to leave or we cannot remove them unless they default. So if they default, it's written that yes, we can move them out. We already have 6 months of rent as security deposit, which covers us for that period of 6 months, and obviously which we don't pay back when they're moving out in terms of default. Within that time, we have a leasing team, which we've hired most of them from Embassy. They're very strong. And as I said, in that vicinity, getting these kind of floor plates, which is roughly about 10,000 odd square feet, and in this building and good 7 floors together, 5 and then 2 down, you don't have much inventory over there. Everything is kind of chock-a-block. So for these kind of gentry of tenants to come in won't be difficult as well. So replacement is something which is our purview. For example, worst come worst, let's say if you've invested into a property residential and your tenant moves out, you might again go back to the market. You might appoint real estate brokers, IPCs, and all of them to get other tenants for you. For that 1 or 2 months, if the tenant is not there, obviously you don't get rents. Likewise, over here also, if there is a 1 month gap between this guy moving out and the other tenant coming in, you will obviously not get rent for that period. But at the same time, Strata will also not charge its management fee or take its fees. So that is something which is very clear from our side. Having said that, the risks are mitigated to a great extent by Puma spending 15 to 20 crores into the fit out, which is a very huge expense, close to about 30% of the overall asset cost. Apart from that, the rentals are the lowest in the micro markets. They will never leave this and go somewhere else. And third is that the kind of terms which we've given them are good. In fact, there's one more thing, Siddharth, which I would want to mention is that because there is a Hyatt hotel just adjoining our building, the Puma employees will be able to use Hyatt gym and swimming pool free of cost till time for the next 15 years. That also as a condition has been laid down. So all these things they will never get. So that's one of the reasons why they're pretty strong over here and looking to take up additional floors in the future as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of stickiness, a lot of intangible benefits, and yeah, they are including so much capex in fit outs.
So in fact, this signing happened during the fag end of COVID. Right now, what happened in COVID, and you have clearly pre-COVID and post-COVID deals now. So if you see now, people have taken benefit of COVID, tenants have taken benefit of COVID, negotiated for a lesser rent. But in terms, landlords or people like us, we have negotiated for a longer lock-in. So that
Yeah.
works in our favor rather than having a higher yield and the tenant moving out in 1 year. That's a riskier proposition than having a stable, solid tenant, but giving you 0.5% lower yield, which is fine because averaging out, we are anyways better than most of the assets in the market. So that is something which is works in our favor as well.
And if at all they were to leave, you also have access to all their fit outs.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
which will always augur well for the next tenant. Okay. Nikhil, do you have?
Yeah, just a maybe last couple of questions before we wrap up this session. Nihar, is the full 75,000 square feet now leased out to Puma?
Yeah, in fact, Puma has taken the entire 75,000 square feet. The building per se is 1,35,000, and they've given expression of interest for other 60,000 square feet as well, which they'll take up in next 12 months. But we've told them that it's not exclusive to them. If we or if the developer who's currently the owner, if he gets the balance, if he gets another tenant for that balance six odd floors, or rather eight, 9 floors, they will sell it to him as well. Or they will rather lease it out to them, and probably we will buy it. Or if Puma comes in, anyways, we will buy it. So that is there. But currently, 75,000 completely owned by, or rather, leased out to Puma. Five
Understood.
floors on the top, 11th to 15th, and then on 2, 3 floors down on the ground and first.
Got it. And one question that always comes, Nihar, is how to compare this versus a investment in a REIT. I know that's a question you are used to answering. So if you could just share your thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Two, three differences, right? And the basic difference being that in REIT, you can't select where your money is going or which asset your money is going. Here, you know what you're investing into, what are you buying out of your investment, and who is the tenant, and what is the kind of rent you're going to get on a month-on-month basis. That is the ideological difference between REIT and this. REIT is something which will give you overnight liquidity. But again, real estate as an asset class is not where you will invest for overnight liquidity. You will invest for stable long-term returns. So hence, I would not ever consider REIT as my investment option just because of liquidity. If I have to take that liquidity bet, I might go in stocks, mutual funds, and all of that, right? Because REITs are subject to mark-to-market risk as well. You see volatility coming into in a very big way in REITs, and over here you will not see that coming in because whether it's COVID, whether it's any other recession, you've not seen these marquee commercial buildings going up and down 40-50% in 3 months time in terms of the capital value. So the biggest reason why I would not invest in a REIT is that I don't want my investments to be volatile to the market. Currently, if you get into any of the REITs, your yield is not going to be more than 5.5%. That's the best. So that's because of the mark to market or the volatility risk which you have. Other thing is that a REIT can invest 10% of their fund into under construction assets which are not generating income. Over here, whatever you invest completely goes into an asset which is generating income for you. After that, also, a REIT cannot sell its asset for 3 years. So there is no capital gain which you're looking at, until 3 years. Over here, at any given point of time, even after 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, the asset could be sold by Strata if majority of the investors agree for that. So capital gains can kick in earlier as well. 49% of the portfolio in REIT is listed. If you see the vacancy at this point of time in any REIT portfolio is about 75 to 80% occupied, 15 to 20% is vacant. So the minute that vacancy goes to 50%, you are in danger because you've anyways leveraged up to 49% of your overall portfolio in REIT. While here, there is zero leverage. Everything is equity. Whatever you invest, that is your own money and that goes into acquiring the asset. So there is no leverage play over here, at least at this point of time. So these are few reasons why you should not be comparing REITs and fractional. Fractional is as good as investing into an asset directly, but into a smaller portion. REITs is somewhere where you're investing into a fund where the fund manager takes the call. One more very important thing is I don't know how many of you all have access to the books of the REITs and what they've got properties on that. So promoters of these REITs have sold these properties to the REITs, right? So typically, for example, one of the largest REITs, the family will sell their proprietary properties and all of that to REIT, downsell it to REIT at obnoxious prices. You have no way to identify at what rate the property was bought by the REIT. While here, you know what is the actual price in the market and what is it that we've acquired because we also share the actual lease agreement, actual sale agreement, everything with you with the receipts of stamp duty and everything. So these are clearly differences between REIT and fractional as a concept.
Perfect. Nihar, thanks so much. I think one question which did come up, and I wanted to also answer it in person, is on the GRIP website, you can currently see the opportunity as more than 100% subscribed. It actually happened while we were doing this session. So clearly we were able to communicate a little bit of the attractiveness of this opportunity. We do have some more allocation that's available in this transaction, and if there are interested investors, they can invest. There's about 20 lakhs more allocation that is available. So please don't worry about the oversubscription. Um, in the interest of time, and I know Nihar has a hard stop at 5, Nihar, thank you so much for doing the session, and thanks to everyone for joining in. Siddharth, Nihar, Aman, any closing words?
No, look, I would just say that I think it's, we think it's an incredibly attractive opportunity, and we have been now tracking this for the last 5 to 6 months. The asset looks very different from the first time we saw it. And Puma has been doing a phenomenal job. Strata has also been doing a great job of managing that relationship with the tenant. I do want to, if Aman could literally spend a minute on exit options. Once again, that would be helpful, Aman.
Sure.
Closing remarks.
Sure. So in terms of the exit options, what you're holding is units in the AIF. These units are transferable under law, and can be transferred by you to a third party person. This could be your family or friend, or if you would want to do a private sale outside. Otherwise, you could approach us, and we could facilitate on a reasonable efforts basis a transfer with the prior consent of the AIF. And of course, if there's an asset sale that happens, in that case, the entire investment that the AIF holds in the SPV itself, the entire investment will basically be transferred to the incoming investor. So everybody all shareholders, including the Strata SPV shareholders as well as GRIP users, would get paid as per their percentage of holding. So those are the 3 exit options which are available.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Aman, for that, and Nihar, once again, thanks a lot for joining us. We know that Strata is likely to bring out another opportunity during the next couple of weeks, and we look forward to reconnecting with this bunch of investors and talking about that opportunity. In the meanwhile, please do consider the KD Strata opportunity. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you, everyone.